Hey WizKid, did you hear the news?
No, I didn't, MrMostDaysOff. What's up?
Well, right now, for the entire month of February, you get 20% off on all orders at popthreads.com just by using our discount code Simpsons at checkout.
That's horrible.
No, man, that's great news. What do you mean?
They're only going to give you 80% of a t-shirt? The humanity.
No, WizKid, you get all of the t-shirt. You're just going to save 20% on the order. You still get the whole enchilada.
Whole enchilada.
No, there's no enchilada. I'm talking about t-shirts. You get to save money on your t-shirts at popthreads.com. You're going to get the whole t-shirt enchilada.
Whole t-shirt enchilada.
Just go to popthreads.com and use our discount code Simpsons at checkout so you can save 20% on all orders for the entire month of February.
Popthreads.com. Note, popthreads.com does not sell enchiladas.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. This is a weekly podcast for anyone who loves The Simpsons or ever has loved The Simpsons, hosted by two dudes that grew up on The Simpsons. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and today, live from the Best Darn Diddly Dream House, we are bringing you our review of Lisa vs. Malibu Stacy. And not only will your co-host with the most be joining me, but we've got another guest today. For now, let's toss it over to Richie. How you doing today, Rich?
I think we're going to change your name to Upper Respiratory, Miles.
Yeah, I'm still, I'm on the tail end of recovering from that, but I'm over the hump at this point. I feel much better. My voice is mostly recovered.
And if you've got the hump, I guess you don't need much else. This is a fun episode today. I'm excited to get into it. So I guess, as usual, when we've got another guest coming on, we shouldn't waste any time. I'm going to throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the man who puts young people behind bars. It's Miles.
And as Richie just said, we do have a guest here today. If I'm not too lazy, which I probably will be, I'm going to throw in the Undertaker's gong right here. Probably too lazy, but just use your imaginations if I didn't do it. Returning and keeping the streak alive, Dr. Andrew Briseño. How you doing today, Andy?
Hey guys, how are y'all? I'm doing fantastic. Excited to be out here in Natchitoches, Louisiana, living the dream, you know.
I thought Miles was going to make one of us make a wrestling noise, and I was like, I think he's talking to the wrong two people for this little soundbite.
I mean, even I got that wrestling reference, bro. So,
thank you.
Know,
why don't
get
you
with
chime
the times,
in?
Richie. I don't know what to tell you. You don't remember the Undertaker's bell? Like, were you
I
not
never
9
watched...
years old in Texas at one point in your life?
The last wrestling I watched was, I don't even remember. I guess Diamond Dallas Page when he was in his prime. WNW.
It's a different podcast, isn't it?
You know, Toby from the Secret Transmission podcast and I are actually formulating a YouTube project specifically for Richie based on wrestling. We'll have more to come with that project very, very soon. But for now,
don't make promises yet.
Yeah, we're not making any promises. We're going to have to pry Richie's stubborn ass off or into the wrestling world, but we'll get him there some way, somehow. For now, Andy, what you been up to, brother? Any news in your world?
Well, just a little bit. I am insanely happy to announce that, my first novel, Down and Out, will be published this summer by Goldwake Press.
And if I'm not mistaken, by far the best aspect of that novel is in fact the villain, right? Is that what I'm to understand?
It has a pretty cool villain, right? So
and what's that cat's name again?
Well, when I started writing the book, I was like really into reality television and reality as a whole, and so I thought it would be really cool if some of the characters turned out to actually be real people if you Googled them. So the villain in the story is named Miles Francis. He's kind of a jerk, I'm not gonna lie. He sort of takes advantage of a town full of unsuspecting Arkansans.
Jerk-ass Miles.
Yeah, he's evil Miles. I've decided I'm gonna give him a goatee so that should you ever come across him in real life, you'll be able to distinguish him from you and know which one is the good one.
That's important. Thank you.
It is. It is.
Very cool, man. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, man. I'm overjoyed. This is pretty sweet news.
I know it's still a long road ahead, but do you have any idea of when that might be available for purchasing?
So, the tentative release date is actually this June, as terrifyingly soon as that, right?
That's really fast, dude.
It is, and I'm super excited, quite frankly. Yeah, I'm doing final edits and trying to help piece together what a cover might look like, and working with my editors and the rest of the team at Goldwake, who are amazing, by the way. Shout out to Goldwake Press.
If you need like a picture of me looking really sinister for the cover, just let me know. I'll put that together for you.
I really think we might do that. Like, I'm thinking a black velvet, with like your face, and then like other stuff like superimposed under your face.
I'm with it, dude. I'm with it.
Yeah, that seems fine.
I want to be the face of this franchise. It's going to be the next Harry Potter, right?
Right? I mean, yeah, it's going to be... sure, why not? Let's go with that. I'm sure someone will want to publish 6 more of these. That sounds stupendous. And then I can be a billionaire. Why not? All of that. No, I mean, it's a real small deal, but I'm still just, overjoyed, right? This is one of those things you dream about. And anyways...
Yeah, man, don't sell yourself short. That's truly fantastic. And honestly, from the bottom of my heart, congratulations. I know personally how long you have been working on this project. So this is a huge deal, in my opinion. And we'll definitely have you back on the show closer to the time that book's releasing so we can help you promote it as much as we possibly can. Very, very cool. And thank you so much.
So the lesson here is creative writing does pay off.
Well... pays goes in large quotes, but,
Maybe pay in a singular sense?
I don't want to, get into book contract details, but it's a real indie publisher, and so...
Just break it down like this. How many copies do you need to sell to clear your student debt?
Hold on, wait a minute. So,
He wasn't a math major, Miles.
Carry the 3...
More paper than we have trees.
literally all of them. No.
Well, you can count on at least 2 copies being sold.
That's amazing.
There you go. Well, that's awesome news. Very excited for you, Andy. But this is, of course, a Simpsons podcast. So let's dive in.
Can we start talking about dolls or what?
Yeah, let's dive into this excellent episode of The Simpsons. I say excellent. There is one reference to Mr. Burns in this one. Richie always gets on to me if I use that word in a non-Mr. Burns episode. But this is a truly great episode that we're about to talk about right now.
It might be the best Burns reference ever.
Oh, Miles, you know how to turn me on.
Everybody already knows that, Richie.
I did know that.
We are talking about Lisa vs. Malibu Stacy today. It originally aired on February 17th, all the way back in 1994. This one had a short credit sequence, which means we did not get a chalk gag, but we do get a repeat of the Monty Python giant foot stomp as the couch gag on this one.
This episode went on for a really long time, I think, just because of Abe. He has so much to say in this episode. I think it made the episode run a little long.
I usually wait a little bit, but I'll go ahead and jump into the commentary. They talked about that a little bit on this one, and it was actually quite a bit challenging to have Abe ramble in a long and boring way without making it get too long and boring. And they did a great job because everything that came out of Grandpa's mouth was absolutely hilarious in this episode. Including his teeth when he made the burger that bites you back. But we'll get there soon. It actually does start out with Dr. Hibbert delivering a speech at the Springfield Center for Geriatric Medicine, where we see Grandpa along with all of the elderly folk in Springfield. Hibbert's giving a speech, but everybody's just there to see Matlock, and they are letting him know about it. They're actually chanting, "Matlock! Matlock! Matlock!" Only when Matlock actually appears, things go from joyous to violent because they take the stage and I guess they're trying to adore him, but they do so just a little bit too physically and they ended up taking him down and choking him by, I believe, his suspenders, if I'm not mistaken.
And they get their cane around his throat, too.
That's what it was, yeah.
I love how the charge is led by a bunch of old women in a very, like, Justin Bieber-y sort of, like, crowd swarming fashion. It's just amazing. And also,
so you're saying Simpsons did it?
I think he's just saying that he likes to swarm the stage at a Bieber concert.
I mean, any chance I get, let's be honest. I'm 100% pro Biebs.
Yeah, sure.
Wrestling fans.
Okay.
I love this conversation between Jasper and Abe on the way. They're on the bus after meeting Matlock, and at first Jasper is actually kind of like talking to Abe because Abe's clearly depressed or down or something. And Jasper's like, "What's wrong, Abe? I mean, we've been wanting to meet him for weeks. That's all you've been talking about. We meet him, you swipe his pills." And then they take a moment to read the label, and it says, "Take one every hour to prevent spastic heart convulsions." And in that moment, we see an ambulance rushing by as paramedics are trying to bring Matlock's heart back to rhythm because clearly he needed those pills.
Which is to say that they just casually murdered Matlock.
But you ain't said a word.
All it does for Abe, he's not really that concerned about Matlock anymore. He's more concerned with the fact that that tired old freak made him realize that he's no spring chicken anymore. He can feel Death's clammy hand right on his shoulder.
Except it's not Death's hand.
It's actually
it's
just his hand. Yeah.
Which happens, you know.
That does sometimes happen.
It's a great little moment there because he's got like his coat around his shoulder, so you can't see that his hand's on there, but then he takes the jacket off and he's like, "Oh wait, that's my own hand."
This turns out to be really good news for The Simpsons because they essentially get what we all dream about, and that's that our older relatives would give us all their money before they have to die. He announces that he's decided that they're all going to get their inheritance while he's still around to enjoy watching them spend it.
Enjoy used loosely.
That's very true. We'll see what's to come with that. I actually really like the first gift is to Lisa. After all, she really enjoys reading and such. So she gets his old correspondence with none other than Boris Karloff.
Mr. Simpson, stop. Your calls and letters are becoming a nuisance. Stop. If you do not cease, I will be forced to pursue legal action. Stop. Signed, Boris Karloff, Hollywood, California.
Dude, I love that little throwaway bit because as a writer, that is one of those things that people just love to do to you once they hear you're a writer. It's like, oh, well, you like to read or you like to write. So here is a bunch of, like, unsorted crap that may or may not actually be interesting. I don't know. It spoke to me. I've gotten a pile of papers from one or more old relatives who I hope don't listen to this podcast now.
I for one, hope they do, sir. Tell your
Me
friends
too.
and family.
Well, if you're listening, Grandma Scylla, I'm sorry.
Stop.
So next up, we see Abe is going to give something to his son Homer. Woohoo! And his entire family.
Aww.
He leaves this box of mint condition 1918 Liberty Head silver dollars. You see, back in those days, rich men would ride around in Zeppelins, dropping coins on people. And one day I seen J.D. Rockefeller flying by, so I run out the house with a big wash tub. But then he realizes that everybody in the family is taking the money and gearing up to go to the mall because they're no longer listening to his story.
But that's such an interesting story.
Seriously, you experienced J.D. Rockefeller dropping silver coins into your wash bucket? Like, I would
From
listen
a Zeppelin?
to that.
From
Yeah,
a Zeppelin.
I would definitely listen to that story. But Homer responds, "Dad, we'd love to stay here and listen to your amusing anecdote, but we have to take these coins to the mall and spend them." Which, I want to make a point here. I think this is the first moment in the show where we get a sense of the overlying theme of this episode. And that is, while Abe might be technically rambling, he is still a man, and therefore his point is more important than anything a woman will have to say in this entire episode.
You can't see the
we're
side
canceled.
eye I'm giving you. I guess I have to say the side eye out loud.
I've been waiting for this for a long time, Andy.
Have you?
He's been evil Miles scheming for a while.
I bet so. Right? You're going to try it, but I don't even believe that. I believe that at the end of this episode, you were like, they have a good point. That's where I'm at.
You're right. I would buy a Malibu Stacy if she had a new hat.
You would too. Anyways.
For now, we see that the entire family, including Abe, is off to the mall. And anyway, about my wash tub. I just used it that morning to wash my turkey, which in those days was known as a walking bird. We'd always have walking bird on Thanksgiving with all the trimmings. Cranberries, Indian eyes, yams stuffed with gunpowder. Then we'd all watch football, which in those days was called baseball. I do want to point out that while Abe is rambling and the family is walking through the mall, I did notice that the leftorium is actually pictured in the background, which I just love that little bit of continuity going on in the Simpsons universe.
Nice. So Ned hasn't gotten back to full-time drug dealing then at this point.
Not at this time. He is taking a break from being Heisenberg.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, in the modern age of The Simpsons, he actually just has a little kiosk outside, so he's got more time to do that in the modern Simpsons.
Well, it's easy to make drug transactions if you're out with the public as opposed to being tucked into a little store.
It's true.
Right and tootly.
I really enjoy the bit they do when they're in the toy store for the first time because we see Maggie playing with an Etch-a-Sketch, and she does something that I could never do with all of the time and practice in the world, and that is she is very neatly writing her own name with an Etch-a-Sketch. Of course, she does have magical abilities, as we all three are well aware of.
I was going to point that out. Anyone who has ever used an Etch-a-Sketch clearly knows that is some form of witchcraft.
Dude, I'm actually always super amazed whenever you see the people that can do, really detailed art projects on an Etch-a-Sketch. That blows my mind because I struggle to make a straight line on an Etch-a-Sketch, which is literally what they're designed for.
I couldn't draw a house with an Etch-a-Sketch, now.
Not a neat looking one. I mean, I could make it so you could tell what I was going for, but there's at least a chance that you would think it was an arrowhead.
And I would bet money you would inevitably erase it before you handed it to me. I bet that this is not a first try issue.
Yeah. That makes me want to shake it every time I see it.
And in the process of handing it over, I'd probably accidentally erase it.
Yeah, you'd shake it some, and then there. Right,
now it
the
looks like
futility
my house
of the
crying.
Etch-a-Sketch. It's a metaphor.
Go,
for the
ooh, a
human
squirrel,
condition.
and run outside to chase it.
But Homer, it doesn't even take a moment to notice his very talented or very magical daughter, or perhaps he's just used to it by now, because he pops down a giant, I don't know, it's like a mountain command center that has missiles.
Looks like fun.
It looks actually like a really fun toy, to be fair. Also a really dangerous toy, as Homer almost immediately proves when he cuts his finger on it after Marge points out that the toy isn't safe.
Doesn't he shoot a missile down his throat too?
Yeah, he manages to blow up his face and shock himself as well, if I'm not mistaken.
He almost dies 5 times in a matter of seconds.
They just don't make toys like they used to in the 90s.
That is true. That is true. It's a lot harder to kill yourself with your toys these days. I imagine. I haven't tried.
Everything's made out of cotton candy now. It's I guess to be fair, it's you can kill yourself with Tide Pods, but toys are relatively safe.
What is wrong with white people? What is wrong with white people? Can someone please explain this to me? There are no Mexicans eating dish detergent, bro.
Yeah.
There are no Mexicans eating dish detergent.
You know what? If you happen to be a Mexican who has tried dish detergent, would you please write into the show just to prove Dr. Andrew Briseño wrong? We'd really love to hear
that
from
racist
you.
bastard.
Yeah, we don't support that type of racism on this show here, Andy. We'd really appreciate it if you could tone it down just a little bit.
Not in Trump's America.
That's right. God, I don't even want to make that joke. That's how bad our country is. I used to make jokes like that left and right. And now I feel slightly guilty about it because it's just well, it was fine when Obama was in charge, but no, it's not.
It has a certain
anymore.
Seriousness to it now.
Yeah. Can't we just go back to being politely racist and not abruptly racist? That's the country I dream of.
That's the shithole I remember.
Very well played, sir. Alright, enough politics. Let's get back to The Simpsons. I love this bit here because Abe is still rambling on, and now he's actually trying to make a point. These toys are being made in the 90s, not made like the ones that he used to get to play with. He was saying, when I was a young boy, toys were built to last. Look at this junk. But you can see he very much struggles to actually break these toys to prove his point. Like, he really puts a lot of effort into snapping that rocket in half. And he has to stomp those army men quite a bit before they're damaged.
Those army men are nearly indestructible.
Those things will ruin your feet.
Yeah, I mean, like, my feet lose to them every single time.
Well, especially since Grandpa is wearing, like, slippers. He's not even wearing shoes. That would be quite painful, I would imagine.
I love the security guards coming to grab him while he's stomping on the TV and like, come on, the soldiers won't bother you anymore.
I like the next bit we get because we get a great movie reference as we see Homer walking along the store when suddenly he hears a single note play as he takes a step. And we get this wonderful reference to the movie Big. And they pointed out on the director's commentary that they actually took the time and effort to make sure that the camera angles were actually the same ones that were used so that Homer was shot with the same angle and same look that they used in the movie. It's a really great reference. And of course, it doesn't go anywhere near as smoothly as it does in the movie because Homer is not nearly as talented as Tom Hanks is.
Well, and I mean, if I'm being honest, it's such a refreshing dose of realism, right? Because, like, Tom Hanks could not play the foot piano that well first try. Like, I'm calling absolute bullshit.
Well, especially when he was a kid, like an hour before that.
I'm just saying, that movie is a dear part of my heart, but there is absolutely no universe where you don't suck the first time you've stepped on one of those things. And I might add, I'm speaking from experience. I've seen one of these things, and it was really, discordant and unfortunate, and I realized I was not Tom Hanks, and it was sad.
Did you sing 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rock? Rock, rock, rock.
And to your point, even if you're a master piano player, you're still not going to be able to play with your feet. I mean, I can beat Mario Brothers pretty easy with my hands, but you try to do it with my toes, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's true.
Untrue. I beat somebody with my feet once in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3.
Well, you're a legend, Richie.
Twice.
I actually really appreciate, too, the way they do the crowd in this shot, because in the movie, it does, as you might expect, somebody playing well on a piano on their feet, like it gets a big crowd around them. In this case, it still draws a big crowd because people want to see what's going on, but as Homer's song continues, they just start to boo and screech because their ears hurt at this terrible noise that's coming from this piano.
And it cuts around the whole mall where everybody can hear it.
Everyone's like grabbing their ears and Homer's just like, thank you very much. Completely oblivious to the fact that he sucks. And that's what we love about Homer.
He's just enjoying life.
I also gotta just love 90s mall culture, right? Like, it's just taken as a given that, like, most of the town is in one shopping space at one time. And we forget that that's literally how life was 20 years ago. Like, everyone was at the mall every Saturday. That is how shopping used to work. Yeah, those were the rules.
But what about Google and Amazon?
If you think about Amazon shopping in that way, it'd be really creepy to imagine being in the same building as everybody who's on Amazon at the same time. But that's what the mall was. I mean, that's how it worked.
You did have to wear pants.
You did have to wear pants to do shopping, and that's really where they lost most people, I think.
A lot of people's pants were sagging.
It was the beginning of the decline.
Well, it was the early 90s, so parachute pants were pretty in style, and those were pretty
Jinkos were right around the corner.
Jinkos are coming, yeah.
I thought you were about to say coming back for a minute, and I was just like, you own it, brother. You do you.
Dude, if I could find a pair of Jinkos, I would rock the shit out of them. I would wear them with my rollerblades and enjoy the crap out of it.
And your Walkman?
Yeah, why not? Absolutely. You find me a pair of, I was about to give you like but yeah, you pair me size 40 Jinkos. I will wear them to class and take pictures. Not at all.
Those are mega expensive, I assume.
So we've spent enough time with the men of the Simpsons clan. It's time to see what the two broads are up to. And they are up in a doll shop, of course. Stereotype.
They're in the same store. What are you even talking about?
They're in, like, the Valley of the Dolls or whatever it was.
I mean, they're
that's
like
all there is for
literally
girls to play
still in
with.
the world's largest KB toys.
Fair enough. Lisa warns her mother as they approach the Malibu Stacy display that she might get a little bit crazy. And before Marge can tell her that she understands, Lisa is already grabbing a girl by the face and saying, "Hey, horseface, get your ugly hooks off of the summer fun set." She has downright de-evolved into an animal at this point over the Malibu
Into
Stacys.
an 8-year-old girl?
Yeah, that's actually more accurate. Look, achy breaky Stacy for $1.99.
That was
from
so
the improv.
good.
Stacy's only 89 cents.
Meh.
I love how everybody's like, ew, to that. It's because girls can't be funny.
No, but they're so funny. And smart.
This poor, unlucky, squeaky-voiced teen who has another job in Springfield working at the toy store is bringing a new box to put on display. And when all the girls ask what's in the box, he tells them it's the new talking Malibu Stacy. And then he immediately gets trampled and destroyed. He's,
"Get him!
Mr. Wise, help!"
Doesn't he also have the job at the Krusty Burger in this episode, too?
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah, that dude is the hardest working man in town.
We learn his last name, too.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought about all that. There's like this whole substar. What's his name?
Old Man Peterson.
Richie the WizKid bringing it down. Nice job, sir. I did not
Grandpa
even catch
literally
that.
says the name in the episode.
I think for me, I must have missed that because I was so offended by the next scene. With everything that we know about distracted driving nowadays, I think this scene just doesn't play as well as it might used to, because we see Homer driving and cooking a muffin with his new Easy Bake Oven, and Marge has the nerve to nag him while he is doing two tasks, and that is just dangerous, Marge. You do not need to distract a man while he's driving and cooking. I almost had to turn the episode off at this point.
I'm sure.
Plus, he points out that that's the reason he bought the damn thing. So he could make it while he was driving.
Which, I just love a world where Homer's going around, like, cooking individual muffins with a light bulb, like, on his way to work and shit. Like...
Or he's just driving around randomly.
Oh, yeah, even better, right? Also, where do you get an AC adapter for an Easy Bake Oven? Like, is that actually a car model? That wouldn't really surprise me. It was the 90s.
I think they had AC adapters for everything in the 90s.
Yeah.
That scene just makes me want to go find my creepy crawler set.
Ooh.
Well, that actually made me think about the fact that I believe both Creepy Crawlers and Easy Bake Ovens were very responsible for tons and tons of burns, like severe burns.
Oh, absolutely.
Back in the day. And that would be right by your leg while you're driving. So that's just a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the idea
You'd probably catch your car on fire.
The idea of a toy oven is, like, kind of ridiculous if you stop and think about it. And the fact that they, like, made millions, I guess they still make these crazy-ass things, right? Like, you can still buy
I think they've
this
changed
device.
them. I don't know how they work anymore, but I think they've changed them so they're not as dangerous
So it's not
as they used to be.
a heating source with a bunch of plastic?
Aww.
Plus, wasn't the goop that they used for creepy crawlers at one point found out to be, like, toxic, or it could, like, clog up people's intestines or something? I thought I remember
Well,
reading
you're putting it
something
in
about
a
that.
giant piece of metal that you're heating up, too. So I'd always grab the metal and be like, ow, Bernie!
Well, the first thing you either lose or break is that flimsy piece of plastic that you're supposed to take the tray out with.
Yeah, the spatula.
Yeah.
Dude, I'd forgotten about burning my fingertips off making worms. That's amazing.
What were we talking about? The Simpsons? I forgot.
Yeah. I also like in the back seat, we see that Bart did in fact get that dope mountaintop command center toy that was super dangerous and has already caused multiple injuries to Homer. And in this case, I think he actually shoots a missile out of the window, and Grandpa is once again complaining and going on and on. I think this time about how he's got eggshell thin skin, or skulls. One of the two.
Yes, an eggshell thick skull.
Lisa's the only one in the family who is thoughtful enough to actually thank Grandpa for all the nice gifts, and he just says, why didn't you get something useful like storm windows or a nice pipe organ? I'm thirsty. What smells like mustard? There sure are a lot of ugly people in your neighborhood. Oh, look at that one.
And then everyone gets out of the car and leaves him in there while he's still talking.
Dude, they barely pull in the driveway. Like, I'm pretty sure Bart just tucked and rolled because they were trying to get away from Grandpa so fast. And he's still screaming, I'm stuck. I can't get out of my seatbelt. I blame this on the Democrats.
Oh, my glaucoma just got worse. The president is a Democrat.
Abe does finally manage to get out of the car, and he comes back in to find the house is empty. Why are you people avoiding me? Does my withered face remind you of the grim specter of death?
The grim specter of death! So good.
Yes, but there's more. I love that.
Dad, I love you, but you're a weird, sore-headed old crank, and nobody likes you.
Consarn it, I guess I am an old crank, but what am I going to do about it?
And we see a TV commercial pop up that plays an ad for Buzz Cola that seems specifically targeted at Abe's demographic. It's a bunch of old people who look like they're basically waiting to die until they have a Buzz Cola, and suddenly they're cool, young, hip, and partying again.
For the record, I would buy any product advertised that way. If they were like, Preparation H, watch it make these old people have a good time, I'd be like, in, sold.
You're going to be applying it before you even get home from the store, huh? I like, though, when Abe actually does try Buzz Cola, because he, too, is a sucker for marketing, but immediately he's like, ow, oh, the bubbles are burning my tongue, ow, water, water.
And then we finally get to, like, the good plot of the episode.
The thing that it's named
Yeah, the
after.
A-plot now that we're finally going to touch base on. We see Lisa is playing with her new talking Malibu Stacy, and she's trying to have them have, like, I guess a town hall meeting or a government debate, something to do with government.
She's addressing the UN General Assembly.
Something girls clearly have no business doing, but Lisa's trying regardless. And as Stacy's about to make her big announcement, she pulls the cord and all that comes out is, I wish they taught shopping in school. Lisa clearly does not like this. Let's bake some cookies for the boys. That's not much better.
Come on, Stacy, I've waited my whole life to hear you speak. Don't you have anything relevant to say?
Don't ask me, I'm just a girl.
Right on, say it, sister.
It's not funny, Bart. Millions of girls grow up thinking that this is the right way to act. They can never be more than vacious ninnies whose only goal is to look pretty, land a rich husband, and spend all day on the phone with their equally vacious friends talking about how damn terrific it is to look pretty and have a rich husband.
Just what I was going to say.
I actually really like this whole little rant by Lisa. It's pretty good. Great voice acting by Yeardley Smith on this one. And I will point out that this whole episode, specifically the talking Malibu Stacy aspects of it, actually comes from a real life issue that they had in 1992 with Barbie dolls. In 92, the Mattel company actually released a Barbie doll that spoke. Only one of the phrases that she said was, math class is tough. And of course, women got all uppity about this and had to make a big damn deal about it just because they struggle with math and can't deal with the facts.
I'm laughing at the parody, not at the actual situation. Yeah, it's a pretty direct reference there. Pretty easy to get.
You can absolutely see why there would be controversy with a statement like math class is tough, especially when we look at the history of the school system and how biased it was with mathematics and science and things of that nature. There really was a large divide in the fairness of schooling. And when this Barbie doll came out, it really took a lot of fire, and frankly, rightfully so, in that regard, just because that is pretty crazy. And Richie and I both just recently watched a documentary, or it's really a television show series. It's kind of documentary style called The Toys That Made Us. And there's actually part of this episode that deals specifically with Barbie, the company, the whole history of the Barbie doll. And they talked about that controversy, and the women behind it, or the head woman, the CEO at the time, was just, first of all, these women are the most ruthless business people I have ever seen in anything. some of the stuff that would come out of these women's mouth was insane. But I don't know if it was chosen to be ignorant or if she had some sort of legal issue where she couldn't comment on it. But this woman's response to this, she just tried to play it so naive, like, I just don't understand what the controversy would be. And it's just like, really, lady? Really?
But the issue for me watching that is I took exception to the way that they were doing it, but like there's men in other companies that do this all the time, and it's just people don't care anymore. So it's kind of a double standard there. So, but like these women, like you said, were absolutely ruthless. They did some shady stuff and were celebrated for it too. So they got accolades for doing something shady to succeed in business, which is something that happens on both sides of the coin. So.
But what this has done is set up what is going to be the main thread of this episode, the issue with Lisa and her doll. But before we cut to our first break and get to the end of our first act, we get one more great scene with A, because in frustration, Lisa actually throws her Malibu Stacy doll out the window just as Grandpa has decided that he's going to start living young again and being free. He's riding a bike yelling out, "Look at me, I'm acting young." And the Stacy that Lisa threw happens to hit right in the spokes of his bike, sending him sailing as he flips over the front of the handlebars, and he just so happens to land in a freshly dug grave.
It's not so bad.
And I also want to point out that from what we know about David Merkin, this makes a lot of sense. On the commentary, he says this is one of his absolute favorite jokes of all time in the show.
Aw, poor Grandpa.
It's a very dark one, but that's just how David Merkin rolls. He's a dark dude. I love the guy. That does bring us to the end of our first act, and we are going to go ahead and take a quick break to hear from our Podern family.
Writers are strange and lonely people. We tend to be trapped in our heads, thinking of characters, coming up with voices, setting scenes. It's a lonely, depressing lifestyle. I mean, some of us drink. Others put a shotgun in their mouth. Whatever it may be, writers need some type of outlet. And that's why Daniel Ford and I got together and created the Writer's Bone podcast to help writers and to keep them out of situations like an insane asylum or painting a wall with their brain matter.
You can subscribe to Writer's Bone on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. Head over to writersbone.com to check out our original fiction, essays, boneyard discussions, and more. And in the meantime, all you writers out there, and hell, all you non-writers out there, keep writing.
Hi, I'm MrMostDaysOff. You might remember me from such podcasts as the I Love Lisa review, and so it's come to this, a Simpsons clip show. I brought a friend along with me today to talk to you about an exciting new product.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Richie the WizKid.
Miles, did you know that most people have no idea how to get a Best Darn Diddly t-shirt?
You can get a t-shirt with a podcast logo on it? I had no idea.
If you go to tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly, you'll find not only shirts, but also Best Darn Diddly hoodies, posters, mugs, and even phone and laptop cases. And that's good news for everybody.
That is good news for everybody.
And did you know the Best Darn Diddly products are also inflammable?
Richie, that means they catch on fire.
I had no idea.
Help support the Best Darn Diddly review show by buying our stuff at tpublic.com/bestdarndiddly. And do try to stay away from open flames.
Bye, everybody.
Back from the break, we see Lisa is now at school, and all of the girls are really into their talking Malibu Stacy, and Lisa's trying to show them the error of their ways. Don't you people see anything wrong with what Malibu Stacy says?
There's something wrong with what my Stacy says.
That's the best part.
This is a great joke right here, and it has some fun real-life references as well. This girl who is named Celeste in the script, but I've never seen her before. She just looks.
We'll
kind of
never
goofy.
see her again. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I don't think she's a reoccurring character. But her doll says, "My spidey sense is tingling. Anybody call for a red slinger?" So this is a reference to a real life event that occurred in the early 90s. There was a group that formed for a long time before, but they really started to take action after that event I mentioned earlier with the Math Class is Tough Barbie. They were called the Barbie Liberation Organization, which I won't point out the irony of their group being called Blow. But they actually took the time and effort to go, and I'm not sure exactly how they did this, but they basically took a bunch of Barbie dolls and a bunch of G.I. Joes. They switched their voice boxes and replaced them on the shelves. So little boys would buy G.I. Joes that would say things like, "Let's go to the beach." And little girls that would buy Barbies would hear things like, "Go, Joe." And this was their big way of pointing out to society how dumb, essentially, toys being branded at specific genders are.
I did not know that. That's hella fascinating.
It's an interesting concept.
That seems like a lot of work for a protest.
It does seem like a lot of effort,
payoff.
doesn't it? Especially when your target demographic of people who are going to be hearing this are going to be like 8 to 10-year-olds.
Well, and I mean, yeah, because like you really are just messing with the you're trying to talk to the parents by screwing up the kids' toys.
But really, you're just making them have a hassle because you're going to have a lot of parents who have to go back to the store to get the G.I. Joe that says the thing that their little boy wanted it to say in the first place. And there might be a handful of kids that are like, "Sweet, I've got this limited edition Malibu G.I. Joe," but that's probably not going to happen a whole lot.
Yeah, and then you're associating your organization with doing something that pissed a lot of people off, and that's going to like not help you get your point across.
They're just a bunch of blowhards, is what you're saying.
I mean, I just want to I mean, that's so much electronical expertise.
Not really, dude. You're just cutting out one little box from inside of a plastic body and putting it into another. I mean, they're not tampering with the actual electronics themselves. They're just switching one box for the other. They're probably identical boxes in shape and size. I don't know for certain, but how much difference could there really be? That's how I think of it.
Okay. I mean,
I'm sure they had men on their society who could help them figure out the details.
Well, you know, math is tough.
I do like there's another just great little, like, remind us that they're all 8-year-old girls moment when Lisa's like, no, I'm not talking about the Spider-Man voice. I mean, she's saying things that are sexist, but all the other little girls are just like,
Lisa said a dirty word.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly how most 8-year-olds are going to respond. They're just going to hear the sex part of sexist and not have any idea what the rest of it is.
It's a really nice moment to, like, remind everyone that, you know, Lisa is ridiculously not an 8-year-old in a lot of senses, right? And just call attention to the mild absurdity of the situation.
Well, once again, we get an instance like Carolyn Omine taught us where Lisa's more the voice of the viewer, where she gets to think and feel the way that most people do in any situation, where most of the other characters are extreme outbursts of what we would do.
Everything is interesting with Lisa when you think of her as being the voice of the writers themselves. That's actually a fascinating way to think about things. Lisa's protest is not stopping at the schoolyard, though. She is bringing it home to the dinner table. She's yelling about how they can't keep making dolls like this. Something has to be done, but the rest of the family just keeps chewing, and there's kind of a long pause. Marge finally responds, "Lisa, ordinarily I'd say you should stand up for what you believe in."
But you've been doing that an awful lot lately.
Yeah.
The Bart one's hilarious. Yeah, you made us march in that gay rights parade.
And he holds up a newspaper and Bart's the face of gay rights.
With a really sheepish look on his face.
And we can't watch Fox anymore because they own all those chemical weapon plants in Syria. But Lisa's still adamant. "I can't believe you're just going to stand by as your daughter grows up in a world where this is their role model."
I had a Malibu Stacy when I was little, and I turned out all right. Now let's forget our troubles with a big bowl of strawberry ice cream.
Lisa immediately pulls the cord on her Malibu Stacy doll, and we hear, "Now let's forget our troubles with a big bowl of strawberry ice cream."
So good. Also more evidence of Maggie being magical, because if you've ever had one of those pull-string dolls, they never say the right thing at the right time. Ever.
No, they
Very
don't.
good point.
They never do.
She got the assist, and Lisa's planting that feminazi bug in her little sister.
If that doll would have said, "Let's go, Joe," it would have been hilarious.
So Lisa has decided that she needs to contact the company themselves.
Hello, you've reached the Malibu Stacy Customer Service Center. If you have a complaint about Malibu Stacy's appearance or odor, press 1. If you've given Malibu Stacy a haircut and need to order a replacement head, press 2. For information on our factory tour, press 3.
Mom, I can go to the factory and complain in person.
Oh, honey, you're not going to throw red paint at the executives, are you? The Keebler people are very upset.
That's so random. What?
What did Keebler do to offend
Murder.
Lisa is what I want to know.
Elf exploitation.
They're murdering elves, so she throws red paint on them. The cookies are made of elves.
Ah!
It tastes good, though.
Cookies.
Hey, so are the green as people.
You've got to tell everyone! For now, though, Lisa, I guess, decides she's going to choose a more peaceful approach. They go and take the factory tour, and everything's pretty much exactly like you might think it would be. Only this tour guide is absolutely fantastic, and I'm going to point out, as we're going to see here shortly, this is an example of a woman. This is the type of role model that little girls should look up to. We see that she's showing him around talking about Enchantment Lane and how there's a little touch of fairy dust in the air until we see that the actual Workman line is not exactly made of fairies.
Right? There's a clog in the torso chute.
That's right. Get your ass in gear. They literally just jam a mop up into the conveyor belt and then you see like a whole pile of torsos fall out.
Which is a great enough point to point out. All dolls are creepy.
That's
True
absolutely
story.
true.
Just, you know,
True
when you see that pile of torsos, you're like, oh wait, yeah, this is weird. Why do I want a small, tiny plastic human again?
that stares at me when I'm asleep.
It does. It has no eyelids.
There's a bunch of history and controversy with the real life Barbie dolls and body image. I'm sure most people have probably at least heard something to do with that. Like things like if Barbie was a real woman, she wouldn't have room for her organs, or she would have like a 6-inch waist. A lot of various.
Should be like
complaints over the
6'8" or
years.
something like that.
She does not have human proportions, even a little bit. Not
No.
even close. That's absolutely.
She's
the
only
case.
110 pounds, and she comes with a book that teaches you how to lose weight, and on the back it says, "Don't eat."
Those are actually true facts of Barbie dolls that came at one point in time. There was at one point a Barbie collection that came that had a scale that was permanently set because it was drawn on at 110 pounds. And a book that came with that Barbie had the front cover that said how to lose weight. And on the back cover, it said, "Don't eat." True story. That is not me being an asshole to try to piss Andy off. That is actually something the Mattel Corporation released in a Barbie doll.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Barbie was based off a freaking hooker doll anyway, so what do you want?
Wasn't that hooker named Stacy too?
I think it was Lily.
Lily, that's right. Yeah. Back to the tour, we get one of those great moments where we see a stock footage video that we get to watch explaining the history of Malibu Stacy, America's favorite 8.5 incher. In 1959.
America loves every 8.5 incher, by the way. Like, all of them are beloved. And, raise your hand if that joke went way over your head as a child. Just me.
Hands in the air, like I'd actually care.
I thought you were going to say raise your hand if you've ever enjoyed an 8.5 incher for a second.
Or if you have an 8.5 incher.
My hand went up regardless.
In all of these cases, my hand is in the air.
But at least 8.5 inches in the air.
We learn of the history of Malibu Stacy. In 1959, homemaker Stacy Lavelle had a design and a dream. The design, Malibu Stacy. The dream, to mass market a fashion doll that was also edible. Kids didn't much like the taste of dried onion meal, but they loved the doll, so a second version was made in plastic. I love the obsession with old timers and onions in The Simpsons, because in this canon, Stacy was made out of onion meal about the time that Grandpa would have been wearing an onion around his belt.
An onion in his belt. That was the style at the time.
That was the style
That
at
was
the
the
time.
style at the time.
Then we get this great reveal that the largest collector of Malibu Stacy in the world is none other than Waylon Smithers. And he's excited to see you, as he points right into the monitor, at StacyCon 94 at the San Diego Airport Hilton.
I find this to be an odd video to play on a tour at a factory, because after the year 1994, it's going to be pointless and they're going to need a new one, aren't they?
I'm sure Waylon pops down and records a new version every year.
But it's fascinating to me that Waylon Smithers is the biggest Malibu Stacy collector, and it's such a great fit to what we know about his character and just the little subtle nuances they do with him. I also want to point out that joke is actually loosely based on the fact that Bill Oakley, who is the writer of this episode, or one of the writers of the episodes, his wife actually in real life he said on the commentary that they sold most of it, but at the time that this episode was written, Bill Oakley's wife actually had a very large collection of Barbie dolls and Barbie accessories.
Right, his wife.
That's what I thought too. That's a great cover-up.
And what does Stacy think of her 35 years of success and millions of friends worldwide?
Don't ask me. I'm just a girl.
She sure is.
Then we see the tour guide turn off the television, and it's time for the Q&A portion of the show. But like most people that have Lisa in a Q&A session, this chick is not ready. Lisa does have a question, of course. Is this remarkably sexist drive spouted by Malibu Stacy International, or is it just a horrible mistake?
Believe me, we're very mindful of such concerns.
Hey, Jiggles, grab a pad and back that gorgeous butt in here.
Oh, get away, you.
Oh, don't act like you don't like it. And as I mentioned, this is a female you want your daughters looking up to.
Did you notice that as she walked into that room with those men to have that meeting, she shut the door with her ass?
Yeah, trust me, I definitely noticed.
Just a terrible few seconds of television right there.
Highlight of the show. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I think we've lost connection with
Andy. Oh no, I'm here. I'm just, too busy rolling my eyes and, trying to hold on for a few more minutes. We'll see.
We've got a whole nother act to go here, buddy. You better hold on tight.
There's a speech coming. We all know there's a speech coming. But like Lisa, I'm going to try to save my speech for the third act. We'll see if I manage to do so.
Miles, I've really learned something here today.
So Lisa just groans at this tour guide because it's definitely not Lisa's role model. We'll say that. She's upset with her visit. She doesn't feel like she's really being listened to at all. In fact, back at the kitchen table, she's sitting with Abe and she's saying, "It's awful being a kid. No one listens to you.
It's rotten being old. No one listens to you."
I'm a 30 to 45-year-old male. Everyone listens to me, even when I have a terrible idea. And then we get nuts and gum together at last.
This is actually my favorite joke in the entire episode. Of course, one of my favorite quotes. I'm a white male, age 18 to 49. Everyone listens to me, no matter how dumb my suggestions are. And of course, the joke is the nuts and gum, which no man ever has had a terrible idea, so that's why this is funny. No, but in all honesty, I really do love this joke, and it actually has a whole level of subtext that I did not know before watching the commentary this time, because that 18 to 49 was chosen for a very specific reason.
Demographic.
That is considered the golden demographic whenever televisions are looking for an audience, so they specifically use that, the writers of this show, to make fun of how silly it is to just try to make shows for this one age bracket and one gender, essentially. Whereas obviously we know that with today's television model being so much different than it was then, everybody loves watching television, or at least most people love watching television. You just need shows that represent your interests, and if you have those, the golden demographic kind of gets blown up a little bit, though it does still exist to this day as far as I know.
Well, we've talked about it before on our other podcast we used to do about where we reviewed movies, where actually women have a higher persuasion on what movies are actually viewed over men, because they're the ones that usually pick the movies anyway. So and they go with all their friends to see movies. So they're actually a more key demographic in the movie sense. So that's why you see more female leads in movies these days as well.
Citation needed, bro. Like, I mean, we are seeing more female leads in movies and more movies that are not exclusively driven by men. But by and large, most of the movies and television coming out of Hollywood these days still reflect, if not these strongly held ideas, then like the remnants or legacy of these strongly held ideas that men are what's important and men's views are so right, which is why, like, I mean, the new Star Wars movie, which was fucking amazing, apparently a bunch of people found it controversial that, like, you know, women were in charge, even though
really, I did not hear that controversy at all.
You didn't hear it? Yeah, no. Well, you know, I guess it was just this one person I saw on the internet who was upset.
Was it you, Andy? Are you referencing your blog? Dude, I
love that
now?
movie from the deepest part of my heart. Like, you know, we have black and brown people blowing up casinos. I'm into that.
I wanted more Rey and Kylo.
I agree. I think Rey and Kylo is what everybody was wanting, and they kept going away from that. And the side sequence to me got a little bit long at times. I still love the movie. I think it's great. I'll see it again. Ultimately, though, I do think that it could have been presented slightly better story-wise.
Yeah, I mean, to each their own.
I still don't know how they got to the casino.
The part where they keep cutting away from the part you want to see is a lot like them trying to shut down that base on Endor.
Ooh, nice point.
Yep.
You know what? You're right. That's what it was. Is there weren't
you know,
nearly enough Ewoks in this film. That's my complaint.
I will second that emotion from the deepest part of my soul. Honestly, the fact that we haven't seen more Ewoks yet, I find really upsetting. Like, I mean, you didn't make 3 new Star Wars movies to deprive me of 3 more opportunities to see Ewoks, did you?
You can see Christmas on Endor.
So clearly Andy was in the age demographic like us that when we were kids watching this movie, Ewoks were awesome. There is a generation of people who were like, fuck Ewoks, that ruined Star Wars. Similar to the way that we felt about Jar Jar Binks. But everybody agrees on
Whoa, do not compare to
Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. Right, that's the difference.
Misa on the Senate seat.
But that's enough Star Wars talk. We are, in fact, discussing The Simpsons. Different universe. Back to Lisa and Abe. Right after Homer gives this great joke, Lisa and Abe have this wonderful little conversation where they're kind of totally talking about different things, but they're completing each other's sentences in a way that it sort of works for a while. Well, I'm not going to accomplish anything just sitting here.
And griping, it's time for...
action! I've got to talk to that woman who invented Malibu Stacy and see if I can get her to...
come out of retirement. I'm going to get me a job. A real Malibu. And see if Stacy can help invent me young. Help!
You're getting a job.
Yes, I'm going where the action is.
The action is at Krusty Burger, y'all.
Hey, but he gets a dope headset, dude. I mean, isn't that really what it's all about?
Headset. I hope so. Otherwise, I've been living my life wrong.
He's actually trying to tune said headset, which is, of course, just the drive-through headset. But he's crying out like, Mayday, I'm losing your transmission. And the guy just wants French fries.
Do we sell French fries? I mean, he's so legitimately asking. Like, it's such a beautiful moment.
We also see that Lisa is taking action as well. She decides that if she can't get anything done at the Malibu Stacy factory, maybe the biggest Malibu Stacy fan can give her a little bit of help. So we see her knocking on Smithers' door. Smithers instantly recognizes her as Homer Simpson's daughter.
I thought it was cool that they actually said Homer Simpson's daughter and he didn't just go, oh, it's Lisa Simpson.
Yeah, that's a lot more real, I think, because he doesn't have that
eventually.
little cue card.
Yeah, like I like how it was real is what it was. It's like a real life thing. That's what I mean about that. Words hurting.
We've seen in the past where he's got the little card where he's like, Homer, wife, Marge, children, Bart, Lisa, and expecting.
Be honest, that's how you pictured Waylon Smithers' house, right?
Oh,
absolutely.
Exactly, yeah. They took it right out of my mind.
a little apartment full of Malibu Stacy's. Absolutely.
And of course, we're about to get to what might be the greatest joke in the episode. It's at least a contender. I said mine's the demographic one, but I could definitely understand if this is yours. We see that Smithers is in fact excited to help. Lisa finds the real life Stacy Lavell's house, the creator of Malibu Stacy. She is a total recluse, but maybe they can use his computer to track her down. And when Smithers turns on the computer, we get this magnificent line in broken Burns voice.
Hello, Smithers. You're quite good at turning me on.
Shout out to the 90s.
You should probably just ignore that.
So, when does this episode come relative to the one where John Waters is an openly gay character? We haven't gotten there yet, right?
Oh, not even close. That one's going to be in
yet,
the teen seasons, I do believe, though. That is one of my favorite episodes.
Well, and it's just amazing, and at that point, it's sort of obvious, and I read an article about how that was one of the first openly gay characters on any episode of television. Or something similar. It was celebrating the 20th anniversary, something like that. But I just think it's so interesting the way that, they're pretty open about Waylon Smithers at a very early point in the show's history. And, it just kind of speaks to the idea of, normalization, I guess, right? Seeing someone who is gay, but who's not, that's not the purpose of them. It's just kind of a feature of their existence is kind of an interesting thing here.
I think it's a very progressive thing that The Simpsons did, and it's the right thing to do, obviously. I think that it's fun to know that the show that we grew up loving was so far ahead of its time, because you're right, there weren't gay characters on television, and they really, from a very early episode, they really didn't pull back on the fact that Smithers has a crush on Burns. I mean, it's obvious early and often.
And he actually has a little side thing with John, apparently, because that episode's going to reveal that when we get to it, which, by the way, is season 8, episode 15.
Oh, wow, that's earlier than I thought it would be. But that's cool. I'm excited to get to that one.
Yeah, John Waters is amazing.
You know what's funny is I love John Waters, and I love listening to him talk, his one-man shows, or when he's just telling stories, if he's on podcasts, things like that. I think he's fantastic, but truth be told, I'm not a huge fan of his movies. I respect his art, and I think it's great that he does it, but I love the man. I don't really enjoy his art as much. I always thought that was interesting.
I mean, I am not all the way versed. I'm sitting here racking my mind for John Waters movies that I've seen. And,
Crybaby is a big one. Hairspray, Pecker.
I saw Pink Flamingo.
Flamingo.
Which, kind of intense.
That one's one of his early ones. It's pretty crazy. What was the name of that? He used to have the same drag queen in every movie, and she was Divine. That chick is amazing. Talk about fucking making your mark on the world. I love hearing stories that he tells about working with Divine. That's some of the best things you'll hear coming out of John Waters.
Word.
So for now, though, we are on the hunt for Stacy Lavelle. We find out that she is actually living in a community for recluses, essentially. So Lisa takes off on her bike and tries to track her down. It's called Recluse Ranch Estates. When she gets there, she notices a house that looks very familiar. She holds up her picture of the Malibu Stacy dream house. And of course, Stacy Lavelle lives in a real-life version of that very home.
Yeah, everyone in Springfield is a really shitty recluse. Oh, well, here's your address. I'll just print it right off for you, and then you can bicycle over there. It's seriously, you're terrible at this.
Well, especially since they didn't have Google Maps at this time. I mean, this was what internet we had in 1994.
Yeah, you could look at one picture of a dinosaur on the internet. That was the whole thing.
Dude, I'm still waiting for my porn that I was looking at in 94 to load.
Oh, one line at a time.
And you couldn't watch videos.
Oh no, you were just hoping it got to the boobs before you ran out of time.
Or you disconnected.
Oh, Mama's going to be home in 20 minutes.
Or, God forbid, if it started from the feet up, that's just awkward because you never know what you're going to quite get to. For now, though, Lisa buzzes. There's a gate for the dream house, of course. And she says, "Excuse me, Miss Lavelle, I'd like to talk to you about Malibu Stacy."
Do you have any idea how many kids have tried to track me down?
Am I the first?
Yes.
So Lisa chose or plays what Stacy says to Stacy. That's a confusing sentence. Lisa pulls the string on the doll and it says,
Thinking too much gives you wrinkles.
that actually invokes the real life Stacy to open her gate to Lisa, seemingly for the first time in at least 9 years, because we see a kid that runs in real quick and says, "I've been waiting to get this Frisbee for 9 years."
And then he throws it right back.
And then immediately throws it back over the fence.
Dude, as a disc golfer, did you not cry a little at that moment of entranced reality?
You and I both have actually lost discs into people's yards on disc golf courses, and it can be very daunting to try to get them back. I believe you and I, Andy, actually climbed onto somebody's roof to get one of your favorite discs back, if I remember correctly.
I can neither confirm nor deny the events you speak of.
These allegations.
Yeah, that was some other doctor I know named Andy.
It probably was that other doctor, you know. Maybe.
Andy Katz.
Mm-hmm.
But with that horrifying moment of losing your disc that you just got back for the second time, we do cut to the end of our second act. And on that note, we are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Do you ever wonder what would happen if you had a robot select 3 random elements and then gave those elements to pretend entrepreneurs, and then those pretend entrepreneurs use those things to inspire amazing pitches? Hi, I'm Derek, host of The Wild Pitch, and I'll tell you what would happen. You get an absurdist Shark Tank style show called The Wild Pitch. New episodes every Wednesday on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, wherever podcasts are found.
And now it's time for our favorite part of the show. What's that say? Ads and sponsorship. Ugh, this is gonna be a real nightmare. Okay, what do you got for me? Patreon.com? What the hell is that? And they just give us money for it? Oh, if only we had that around in the 70s. Make sure you ask your mommies and daddies to send money to Best Darn Diddly at patreon.com so they can drive a dump truck full of money up to our houses. Uh-oh, I said the loud part quiet and the quiet part loud. My name is Stacy, but you can call me...
And that is how we start the third act, where we see Lisa demonstrating to the real life Stacy just how sexist her doll is.
While real life Stacy drinks scotch.
Real life Stacy is kind of a badass, I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she tells Lisa, "I see exactly what you mean. This is a problem, but what do you want me to do about it?"
Change what she says. It's your company.
And Stacy explains that it hasn't been her company since she was forced out in 1974. They said that her way of thinking just wasn't cost effective.
That's awful.
And that she was funneling profits to the Viet Cong.
Which is also awful. Have we pointed out yet that she's voiced by Kathleen Turner?
I was just about to. I'm glad you brought this up. We have another great celebrity guest in this episode, Kathleen Turner, playing the owner and creator of Malibu Stacy, Stacy Lavelle. And Dave Merkin once again talks about his experience with Kathleen Turner on this commentary. And he says that she was an absolute pro. Not only was she delightful, she came in, they had an early morning recording. She knocked out all of her lines, boom, 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 kind of like Krusty's about to here in just a little bit. Only she actually gave it sincere effort and heart, and she just did a wonderful job. They had a great experience recording together. I really like hearing about all the times that the directors work with these voice actors that are big name celebrities, and just, be it Michelle Pfeiffer, who was a first timer, or Kathleen Turner, who came in and I think she had actually done voice acting experience before, but just knowing that they are so willing to give themselves to the show in so many ways, it's a lot of fun to hear about these experiences.
Especially with a director like Merkin, who his kind of dry sense of humor, so to speak, and his darkness, where he's speaking so lightly about somebody in particular. Like that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that when Lisa is still talking with Stacy, she's kind of taken aback that Stacy doesn't really have control of the company. And she's like, that's awful. I mean, it's your name. You have a responsibility. I'd be mortified if someone made a lousy product with the Simpsons name on it.
Which, shout out to the swap meet Simpsons bullshit I know we all had as kids. Right? Like, I had a shirt with, like, a Mexican colored Bart that said,
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Of course I did. I mean, again, yeah. I also had a picture. I also had a shirt with Fred Flintstone with his hat backwards saying "Yabba Dabba, no do."
That would have been a copyright infringement.
Well, I mean, there's no copyright at the swap meet, bro.
That's true. I love the swap meet, dude. They don't make swap meets like they did. Like I sound like a crotchety old man again, but they just don't exist anymore.
Yeah, rampant ignoring of copyrights is just no longer a part of swap meet ethic, or at least not in the same way. And I find that depressing.
And I think eBay has ruined the days where you could go and find some old guy who's selling a box of video games or comic books, and you could pay like a nickel and get several $100s worth of products. Now it's like, well, let me look up the value of that on eBay. Yep, that's going to be $55 for that one cart. And it's like, this is a swap meet, motherfucker. I think you're missing the point.
Yeah, eBay has ruined flea markets to some degree or another. Like, I mean, not completely, but...
That's how I got Streets of Rage 2 on my Sega.
Oh, Streets of Rage 2. You can play with the person on skates? Shout out to
Oh,
Skates.
yeah.
Skates.
He was my favorite.
Oh, that was his name. His name was Skates. Not cleverly named, but...
I think it was just Skate singularly, if I remember correctly.
I think there was a code you could put in where you could play as the kangaroo boss from like level 1 or 2.
I think that's on Streets of Rage 3, actually.
Yeah, you're right. You are totally right. But for now, back to The Simpsons, we see Stacy Lavelle explaining to Lisa, I may have had many things in common with Stacy in the beginning, but 30 years of living her lifestyle has taught me some very harsh lessons. 5 husbands, Ken, Johnny, Joe, Dr. Colossus, and give me a hell yeah for Steve Austin.
Dude, that is my favorite joke in this episode, where Stacy has been married to all of the classic male figurines of 80s and 90s glory.
Well, yeah, because Ken's obvious, Johnny's a cowboy, Joe is G.I. Joe, Dr. Colossus is like the traditional villain in a lab coat, and then Steve Austin, of course, is the legendary Stone Cold Steve Austin.
No, it's not. What's wrong with you? I just imagine in your world, like, you hear Steve Austin and it just transfigures.
I heard the glass breaking and he doing his badass walk down the aisle as soon as down the ramp as soon as they say Steve Austin anytime.
That's fair enough. What does Stone Cold 316 actually say?
I just whipped your ass.
Oh.
Is that what he said to the other 4?
And it's Austin 316, motherfucker. Don't be blasphemous.
I said the full name. Whatever. Deal with me. You know, I read the wrestling
it's
Bible
funny when
all the
Miles
time.
uses the term blasphemous.
It's only to describe wrestling, if you notice.
But for now, Lisa's trying to urge the real-life Stacy, you can learn from Malibu Stacy's mistakes. So can everyone. We just need to think of something together. Come on.
Not now. I'm too drunk.
No, you're not.
She sips it.
But she very clearly is. Like,
she just takes another sip from her whiskey.
And you see that look in her eyes, like, yes, she is.
That might be the darkest joke in this whole thing. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's
there's
probably
no
a Merkin
response,
joke.
there's no, like, no, she's just gonna sit here and sip whiskey until you leave.
Lisa does decide that she might be better served coming back tomorrow. One more quick fun fact about Kathleen Turner. She was, in fact, born in Springfield, Missouri.
Weird.
I just thought that was a fun tie-in.
I like it.
We get to go back and see what's going on with our other suppressed demographic, and that is Abe Simpson at Krusty Burger. He's told that they need some more secret sauce, so he needs to go put the mayonnaise in the sun. Oh, God, that's a gross joke.
It's gross because you eat Big Macs. Like, it's just funny over here.
Touche. So, Mr. Peterson, as we now know is the formal name of Squeaky Voice Teen, takes off and leaves, and this is where we get a great gag where Abe is like, oh, come on, old man Peterson isn't around anymore. Let's have some fun. And he actually takes out his teeth and puts them in between a hamburger bun and starts talking about it's the burger that can bite you back. Only his coworker is either so bored or so stoned that he doesn't notice because he's just packaging hamburgers over and over again into the bag. And he actually ends up serving this denture burger to a customer in the drive-thru.
Quality control, man. Quality control.
That sandwich took a bite out of me.
So back to Stacy and Lisa. Lisa does go back the next day, as we talked about. And she's got some ideas. She knows what she wants to make. They're going to make a new doll. She'll have the wisdom of Gertrude Stein, the wit of Kathy Geiswhite, the tenacity of Nina Totenberg, the common sense of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and to top it off, the down-to-earth good looks of Eleanor Roosevelt. Or as I like to say, she'll have the qualities of a bunch of broads that don't know their place.
Yeah, okay then.
So, for real though, Kathy Geiswhite is actually the creator of the Kathy Common strip. Nina Totenberg is an NPR journalist who's very, very well-renowned for her political pieces. Elizabeth Cady Stanton was an 1800s social activist for women's suffrage, which does not mean women suffering, Andy. I know that confuses you sometimes. And to top it off, you know who Eleanor Roosevelt was. She was the first lady.
What about Gertrude Stein?
Oh,
I totally forgot to look her up. Anybody want to bail me out here?
Gertrude Stein is a 20th century writer known for her liberating ideas.
Like I said, a bunch of broads that don't know their place.
Yeah, whatever, John. I just have to shout out one of the casual history jokes here that they can lay on are just so lovely. Like, Elizabeth Cady Stanton was not at all known for her level-headedness, and I really, really respect Eleanor Roosevelt's career and everything she did as an activist, as a person. But have you seen a picture of Eleanor Roosevelt? That's all I have to say.
Are you trying to suggest that she does not have down-to-earth good looks, Andy?
I am trying to suggest that I found that joke ridiculously funny.
Fair enough. I actually really like this next sequence because Stacy actually kind of gets empowered in this moment. She's revitalized. She excels her smoke that she's been puffing on, and then she throws her drink into the fire, and there is a very large rise in the flames.
Which incidentally will only happen if you are drinking something over about 100.
Yeah, it's got to be some intense alcohol to get a reaction like that.
Yeah,
totally.
Vodka doesn't do that.
Before they can go and make their stand, however, there's a knock on the door, and we see Joe, who's very clearly G.I. Joe, come in. Stacy, please, I must have you back. Just come for a ride with me in my mobile command unit.
Joe, I told you, it's over. Release me from your kung fu grip.
Fine, I'll bomb your house into the ground, missy. Did that not escalate quickly? Like, holy crap.
Well, and I mean, it so sounded like the conversation that would happen when you were playing, like, I don't know. I have a little sister, which meant that there was more than one game of Barbie and Ninja Turtles.
Oh, I have the same experience because my friend as a kid had an older sister and she had like the most badass dollhouse ever. So of course, me and her brother would always invade it with our Ninja Turtles and we'd get into some pretty epic confrontations.
Right? And like it just feels so perfectly how two kids make their dolls talk to each other. Oh, I wish it would go. No, all right, well, I'm going to blow all your shit up. The end.
I also think there's an aspect of this like 1950s relationship where the man would like pop the woman or like the honeymooners, like pop, pow, straight to the moon, Alice, but like in a G.I. Joe twist.
Hey, Merkin.
I get it. I'm in tune with that, man, dude. I love the dark sense of humor. It really cracks me up. I also enjoy this next sequence in the Simpsons home because they're now at the point where they're trying to design the doll. And Lisa's instructing to make sure you get my mom's hair just right. But Stacy decides they're going to go just a little bit of a different direction. Every member of the Simpsons family volunteers their hair to be the model, but eventually it just breaks down until Stacy has to tell them, "You all have hideous hair."
I mean, from a design point of view.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, it's okay. Yeah. I just love those little shout-outs, those little meta narrational moments, right? Like, I mean, the Simpsons really do have
the only family in Springfield that doesn't have real hair.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like, Lisa is the only person who has hair the same color as the rest of her body. Her and Bart.
And Maggie.
Yeah, shut up.
So we then get to a sequence which I predict is going to be Richie's favorite part of the show. I might be wrong. We go to the voice recording session for this new doll that Lisa and Stacy are making. The techie is trying to talk Lisa through everything, and they're on take 8 when we catch up with them. Lisa says, "When I get married, I'm keeping my own name. That should probably be if I choose to get married."
I want one of these dolls so bad. I want a Lisa Lionheart.
You're the target demographic right there with Waylon Smithers.
Fine with that.
The techie, of course, is just like, "Little girl, we've got other talking dolls to record today." And we get the best Krusty moment. Well, the only Krusty moment in the show, but it's a great Krusty moment. He barges in with his cue cards in hand.
"All right, you Poindexters, let's get this right. 1, hey, kids, I'm talking Krusty. 2, hey, here comes Sideshow Mel. Again, here comes Sideshow Mel. Sideshow Mel. 3, bada bing, bada boom, I'm done. One from a professional, kid."
We hear his tires squealing as he peels out from the recording booth, and just then we flash out and see the techie changing the tapes. "Okay, Krusty, we're ready to roll." What the? And Krusty's already gone. Another fun fact from the commentary, they mentioned that they were actually at one point creating a doll that actually had Krusty saying lines in this manner, where it was going to be very rushed and clearly like there was no effort put into it. But unfortunately, that doll never actually made it to market.
Oh, that would have been hilarious.
I would buy that doll today if it came out. It would be such a perfect in-joke to what The Simpsons represents.
Unfortunately, it didn't test well with males age 18 to 40.
Yeah, well, we do need to trust their opinions after all.
Nuts and gum.
That's how we get nuts and gum, baby.
We have the nuts and gum president right now. Incidentally.
Okay, wait, first of all, no way that dude's 49 in the 49 demographic for what it's worth. And he also doesn't weigh 239 pounds, but that's for a different conversation. Hashtag Girther movement.
I hope he listens to our podcast.
We don't need to fat shame people, even if they're evil.
Lisa's dream and vision becomes a reality. We actually see that there is a doll that Lisa and Stacy have brought now ready to bring to market. It exists. It's real. It's tangible. The only thing left that they need is a name. And I love Bart here because, to be fair, Bart is usually a little bit more in the the foreground of the episodes, and he very much took a back seat in this episode. He gets a great moment here as he's starved for attention, so he's trying to make as big of a nuisance as he possibly can. He's suggesting things like Blabbermouth, the jerky doll for jerks, Wendy Windbag, Doris, Hortense the mule
Ugly
face
Doris.
dolls. Ugly Doris, you're right.
Hortense the Mule Face. I want to name a band all of these things.
These are good band names in a lot of ways. Loudmouth Lisa, Stupid Lisa Garbage Face. Finally, he's just like, "I can't stand this any longer. Somebody please pay attention to me. Hello, pay attention to me. Look at me. I'm Bart. I'm Bart. Look at me. Look at me." And we then see that the doll is going to be named Lisa Lionheart. They're setting up the display, and Lisa is almost in disbelief. She doesn't know how they could have possibly got this done, but Stacy just explains it wasn't that hard. I just told him who I was, and I told him who you were.
Really?
Well, I didn't tell him who you were. Then we see the ruthless side of the toy business as some of the Malibu Stacy executives catch wind that there's going to be some new competition on the market, and they are ready to crush it. And this is way too reminiscent of the real life Mattel company. I mentioned that the Toys That We Grew Up On series that's available on Netflix. There is an anecdote that they tell during this documentary that they talk about a time in the 80s when Gem, as in Gem and the Holograms, was going to release a doll that was going to be considered competition for Barbie. And the CEO at the time, the way she tells this story, it sounds like they were going to war. She literally uses the terms like, we killed them or something like that at one point. Essentially, they found out about this doll and then they rushed their own version of like rock and roll Barbie to market so that they could beat them to the punch and make it look like their doll was a knockoff of Barbie, when in fact, they just knocked off the Gem and the Holograms idea.
They said it takes 18 months for the doll to actually come out, but they did it in like 4.
I think that's exactly right. They just poured everything into it. As we know, it doesn't matter how good your product is if nobody knows about it, and that's the case for Lisa Lionheart. But fortunately for her, Kent Brockman's own daughter picked up a Lisa Lionheart and absolutely loves it. She insists that her dad does a report on this new dolly, and at first Kent's like, no, we're not going to do that. I've got to do important business. I'm going to write an article on the anniversary of Beetle Bailey. But his daughter insists, and he finally says, well, fine. I mean, you were right about the Berlin Wall.
Right about the dolly.
We skipped over the bit before where the toy company called the senator to go take care of the matter personally, and he threw a brick at the Simpsons door.
Yeah.
And Lisa was like, Dad, did you hear anything? And you just hear Homer go, I don't know.
And then later they say, the one thing we've tried hasn't worked.
Yeah. So Kent Brockman honored his word to his daughter. We see a news report where it's at the tail end. He says, though it was unusual to spend 28 minutes reporting on a doll, this reporter found it impossible to stop talking. I have no idea what that must be like. It's just really fascinating news, folks. Good night. Oh, and the president was arrested for murder. More on that tomorrow night. Or you can just turn into another channel.
I'm being told not to turn into another channel.
He's kind of like looking off the side to his producer, and he comes back the last thing, do not turn to another channel.
Yeah. I love the surreal nature of that. No, the whole podcast, the whole newscast was on the doll. Makes sense. It's fine. Like, it just brings to task the absurdity of the situation. I love the fact that, like, in many ways, this is one of my favorite eras of The Simpsons because they, at this point, know what The Simpsons is as a concept, and they spend a lot of time toying with that and sort of playing with that, and we get that with Bart's digression earlier, and we get that here where it's like, it's just super convenient for Kent Brockman to report on whatever they want to be the next big piece of news everyone in town has. And so they've used that trick how many dozens of times by this point, right? It's just nice to see them take a little moment out and be like, it's ridiculous.
That felt like a Jerry's moment because we had that nice little interlude in the background. That was Andy's moments.
You nailed it.
That's what I do.
Going back to the Krusty Burger for a bit, we see a large crowd of old people complaining to Abe about things like cutting their tongues on pancakes and eggs being too difficult to digest, and Abe at first is kind of getting onto him, but halfway through his rant, he decides, you know what? I should be making these complaints with you guys. The good Lord lets us grow old for a reason, to gain the wisdom to find the fault with everything he's made. Mr. Peterson, you can take this job and fill it. And one more thing. I never once washed my hands. That's your policy, not mine.
Hashtag inappropriate bragging. Basically, I'm saying that Grandpa's a stable genius.
Oh, wow. Offensive sexist jokes and Trump jokes. Yeah, this is a great Simpsons podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, there's literally no one who can listen to this and not be upset.
That's the goal every week. We're nailing it. So there's really only one last thing to do, and that's to actually see the doll's release. And it looks like it's going to be a big success because all the little girls in town and Waylon Smithers are lined up excitedly to get the Lionheart Lisa doll.
Which I really like the name, by the way.
Lisa Lionheart?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a good name. Though those evil executives have one little hiccup to put in the way. It just so happens as the crowd is on their way to the new doll, the Stacy doll has been released with a brand new hat, and it completely stops the entire crowd in their tracks.
It changed the
Don't even know what
game.
to do with themselves.
Lisa tries to point out it's just the same doll with a cheap plastic hat. And Waylon Smithers is first to point out, but it's a new hat. It seems like all of this was for nothing. The Malibu Stacy with new hat doll flies off the shelf while the stacks and stacks of Lisa Lionheart stand in their own display. Until we see that one girl, it was Kent Brockman's daughter, shows up to pick up her dolly. Lisa declares, I guess this was all worth it, as long as we connected to just that one little girl.
Yes, particularly if that little girl happens to pay $46,000 for that doll.
What?
Oh, nothing.
Can we shout out to where you could launch a full toy company for $47,000 in 1994?
You're going to have to add a few zeros to that in today's age.
Well, she probably
Right,
called in some favors, too, with who she was.
I do like that even though Stacy obviously just took a financial hit, she still gives kudos to Lisa and tells her she did a great job. Homer says, Marge, Lisa, lady, if you excuse me, I've got something very important to attend to. And we get a great ending sequence as Homer runs back to the floor piano to play the Simpsons jingles. And despite 3 teenage employees trying to pull him off, they can't manage to do so until Homer breaks the piano again.
Is one of them squeaky voiced teenager? Does he work here too?
He works everywhere, so it wouldn't surprise me.
He's the real clone, not Homer.
That is more proof for the clone universe. But that does
Intriguing.
bring us to the end of Lisa versus Malibu Stacy. Andy, was there anything else that you would like to add before we get out of here?
Yeah, so,
Here it comes.
I've been kind of quiet, letting you have the floor. I've kind of been letting you, get away with more sexist jokes than I probably should. And largely that's because, as this whole series points out, life is probably better when we can laugh at our problems, etc. And, by all means, let's keep a humorous look to this. But I want to tell you, just very briefly, about the Tuareg people of Africa. So, I know that's a random thing, but
I'm going to be very excited to see how you tie this all together. Please.
So, the Tuareg people are, and I'm not a 100% expert on this. I looked it up for this. So, if there's some linguist listening and this is all wrong, I'm sorry. But the Tuareg people actually speak a language that has no word for purple. Literally, when they tried to translate Prince's #1 album of all time into this language, it was rain that's blue with a little bit of red in it. What's interesting, the reason I like to talk about this fascinating idea is, do you know what happens when you show a Tuareg person something that's purple? Do they say, holy shit, this is a brand new color I've never seen before? No. They say, oh, that's blue. Or, oh, that's reddish. What I'm saying is that because they do not have a word for purple, when they encounter purple shit, they see it as blue or red. And the point I'm trying to get at is that the language we use actually creates and constrains our consciousness much more than we recognize. So, if you only hear women referred to as dumb broads, then that's going to create part of your consciousness. Meanwhile, if you have exposure to positive or even neutral or honest role models, then you get to have the potential to see yourself in various different important roles. So, in the middle of all these jokes, The Simpsons managed to throw in some really real shit, if I'm just going to be honest. And I remember watching this as a kid and sort of becoming more aware of the way that, our society is really messed up. And, it honestly does, for the most part, hold up way better than most 90s feminism does, at least in my humble, male, unaffected position. So, I'm a huge fan. I'm glad that I got to come on and be the butt of several jokes for you guys in this episode. And shout out to G.I. Joe's Kung Fu Grip.
This episode is another one that we've found time and time again with The Simpsons that is just as important today as it was 24 years ago when it first aired. And that says a lot. And Andy, going along with what you said, as a kid seeing this episode, I think it's greater that you see it as a kid because it opens up your mind a little bit. I remember seeing this episode for the first time and getting the point at the end of the episode, which is really cool that a show that's supposed to make you laugh can make you think that way too. And it definitely played even better now as an adult than it did when I was a child as well. I didn't remember liking this episode as much as I actually liked it, probably because it was a Lisa episode, but we found with the last 2 or 3 Lisa episodes, they're so much better than almost what you've been talking about where like, you think of Lisa in your head and you have these ideas build up in your head where like, oh, it's a Lisa episode. But if you take them individually, you have so many great moments with her. I respect her character and enjoy the character so much more now as an adult than I did when I was, 12 years old.
I think this is a good time for me to go ahead and say, if it wasn't super fucking obvious up until now, most of the shit that I said in today's episode, I was literally just trying to pick through the script and think of the most fucked up jokes I could think of, specifically to push Andy's buttons, because I love Andy, but I love pushing his buttons more. And I think that everything that he just said is absolutely the case. It's super important to have role models that you can actually see yourself for any group. Like we were talking about movie representation or television representation. In this case, it's TV for specifically the cause of feminism. It's super important for young people to have an opportunity to see themselves in a successful light. And I agree, The Simpsons, so much better than a lot of things, especially from the 90s, holds up and actually keeps this moral code and still manages to be funny while making up a really strong point, or while making a really strong point for its movement. Of course, if you are a feminazi, then I meant every single word that I said during today's episode.
What does that word even mean? God damn it. Like, what the fucking phone? Where do we even get that goddamn term, Miles? Like, I mean, seriously, you're quoting Rush Limbaugh. How does that make you feel inside?
I finally broke him. I've been trying the whole episode. I've been trying the whole episode. If you listened to last week's Behind the Diddley, you knew that I was going to go pretty hard at Andy this week, and I finally cracked the shell. It took damn near 2 hours of conversation, but we got there, folks. We got there.
I do have a couple things to point out from my little handy guidebook here to rope us back in, to give Andy some saneness.
To let Andy breathe for a second?
Yeah.
Y'all are all right.
So my companion guidebook, The Simpsons, A Complete Guide to Our Favorite Family, pointed out that the We Love You Matlock song at the beginning parodies the We Love You Conrad tune from Bye Bye Birdie. So that was a movie reference there that we didn't get to earlier. And also, you pointed out early on that the Leftorium was in the background. There were a bunch of other stores in the background as well, and some of them have pretty funny names. There was the House of No Refunds, the Simply Shoes, the One Size Fits All Lingerie, and then the Leftorium and Origami Designs. Just Videos, Yogurt Nook, and then the Kidstown USA.
One Size Fits All Lingerie is the greatest.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, in all seriousness, folks, I do have to say thank you so much to Dr. Andrew Briseño. He's one of my best, dearest friends, and as much shit as I love giving him, I do, Andy. I very much appreciate you coming on the show and spending time and giving us your insight today. Honestly, when you told me you wanted this episode, I knew exactly why, and I thought it was a perfect fit. And I truly do hope that the points that you made came across stronger than the stupid jokes I was attempting. With that said, I do want to point out one last little thing just to show the divide in sometimes with the creators of the show and the advertisement of the show, because the way that Fox chose to promote this series or to promote this specific episode when this was going to originally air is they actually took out an ad on TV Guide that featured Bart Simpson holding the Malibu Stacy doll, and at the angle it was shot, it very clearly looked like Bart was looking up Malibu Stacy's skirt. Again, the Simpsons writers and crew were just completely baffled. They're like, did you even watch the fucking episode before you decided to advertise it? They still to this day probably think they didn't, and at the end of the day, they know that that's not what the advertisement's all is about. They know that sex sells, and that's what they are trying to flip it as. But I thought you might appreciate that little anecdote. But again, truly, thank you for coming on the show today, Andy. It was a lot of fun as usual.
Oh, dude, my pleasure, 100%.
The streak is alive.
And obviously, I knew how this was going to go, beforehand.
You picked it anyways.
And you came on and you were a great sport with it, man. I poked hard.
I'm the closest thing to a feminist that you guys know, and that's to say that I'm working on it. So yeah, got to get in there when I can. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a
thank
pleasure.
you for coming back. We expect you to keep the streak alive in season 6. We'll talk about booking that real soon. In the meantime, tell everybody where they can find you online and promote that book of yours one more time.
You can find me on Twitter at that is so weird. Anyways, you can find me on Twitter at JAndrew Briseño, Briseno. And my book will be coming out this June from Gold Wake Press. You can check them out at goldwakepress.com.
Name of the book?
What's the name of it?
Goldwakepress.com.
No, the name of your book.
The name of the book is Down and Out.
You gotta learn to plug yourself better, brother.
Dude, I do. So, yeah. And please look for my novel, Down and Out, which is coming out from Goldwake Press this June. Also, check out Goldwake at goldwakepress.com. They are an amazing small company, and they're doing fabulous things. All the books they publish are amazing. So, go read them.
Very cool. Richie, what about yourself, sir?
As always, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at theWiz_kid23. Also, while you're on Twitter, go ahead and give our show a follow as well. That's at Best Darn Diddly. That's DIDDLY.
That will, of course, work on Instagram and YouTube as well. For me, I am at MrMostDaysOff. The WizKid and I thank you so much for tuning in and joining us on this journey down memory lane with The Simpsons. We hope that you'll join us again next week as we review the episode Deep Space Homer.
And you have to tune in next week because we're 2 white males aged 18 to 49, so you all listen to us even if we're super dumb.
Plus, I'll have a new hat.
Until next time, be cromulent to each other.
Rising from the depths of a state called Michigan, 2 inebriated dorks prepare their plan for intergalactic domination. Mixing their extensive knowledge of geek culture with their insatiable thirst for alcohol, these 2 man-children bring you a show like you've never heard before. They will tell you tales from faraway lands and have you questioning their taste in beer. But make no mistake, friend, for the best coverage of your favorite comics, films, and TV shows, there's no better source for you to get your fix. So listen up, strap in, and prepare yourself as Jake and Tom conquer the world.